Hey guys, hoping all is well with everyone. So in this video we're going to be starting a brand new read-along. This is going to be the Redwall series by Jacques, and this was one of my favorite childhood reads. I love the Redwall series. It's an amazing story of adventure, of a mouse colony, and it's really a great read full of adventure, mystery, and we're going to jump right into it. So I just want to kind of let you in on a little bit about how the Redwall series works, at least with the first book. So the first book is divided into 3 individual books, so it's kind of like a segment of the book, so to speak. So there's going to be 3 books in Redwall. The first book is The Wall, the second book is The Quest, and the third book is The Warrior. Just to give you a visual, this book does contain pictures, so I do want to show you. This is Redwall Abbey, which is where the mouse colony kind of lives and resides. So just to give you a little bit of idea of the map, you have Mossflower Woods, you have the quarry, the meadow, and just kind of the surrounding countryside. But let's go ahead and definitely hop into it, and I hope you guys enjoy. So I'm going to read the prelude first, just kind of the opening page, and then we'll look at book 1. It was the start of summer of the late rose. Mossflower country shimmered gently in a peaceful haze, bathing delicately at each dew-laden dawn, blossoming through high sun noontides, languishing in each crimson-tinted twilight that heralded the soft darkness of June nights. Redwall stood foursquare along the marches of the old south border, flanked on 2 sides by Mossflower Wood's shaded depths. The other half of the abbey overlooked undulating sweeps of meadowland, its ancient gate facing the long dusty road on the western perimeter. From above it resembled some fabulous dusky jewel, fallen between a green mantle of light silk and dark velvet. The first mice had built the abbey of red sandstone quarried from pits many miles away in the northeast. The abbey building was covered across its south face by that type of ivy known as Virginia creeper. The onset of autumn would turn the leaves into a cape of fiery hue, thus adding further glory to the name and legend of Redwall Abbey. Book 1, The Wall. Chapter 1. Matthias cut a comical little figure as he wobbled his way along the cloisters, with his large sandals flip-flopping and his tail peeping from beneath the baggy folds of an oversized novice's habit. He paused to gaze upwards at the cloudless blue sky and tripped over the enormous sandals. Hazelnuts scattered out upon the grass from the rush basket he was carrying. Unable to stop, he went tumbling cowl over tail. Bump! The young mouse squeaked in dismay. He rubbed tenderly at his damp, snub nose while slowly taking stock of where he had landed, directly at the feet of Abbot Mortimer. Immediately, Matthias scrambled about on all fours, hastily trying to stuff nuts back into the basket as he muttered clumsy apologies, avoiding the stern gaze of his elder. Sorry, Father Abbot. I tripped, you see. Trod on my Abbot, Father Abbot. Oh dear, I mean. The Father Abbot blinked solemnly over the top of his glasses. Matthias again. What a young buffoon of a mouse. Only the other day he had singed an old brother's Methuselah's whiskers while lighting candles. The elder's stern expression softened. He watched the little novice rolling about on the grass, grappling with large armfuls of the smooth hazelnuts which constantly seemed to escape his grasp. Shaking his old gray head, yet trying to hide a smile, Abbot Mortimer bent and helped to gather up the fallen nuts. "Oh, Matthias, my son," he said wearily, "when will you learn to take life a little slower, to walk with dignity and humility? How can you ever hope to be accepted as a mouse of Redwall when you are always dashing about, grinning from whisker to tail like a mad rabbit?" Matthias tossed the last of the hazelnuts into the basket and stood awkwardly shuffling his large sandals in the grass. How could he say aloud what was in his heart? The abbot put his paw around the young mouse's shoulder, sensing his secret yearnings, for he had ruled Redwall wisely over a great number of years and gained much experience of mouse life. He smiled down at his young charge and spoke kindly to him. "Come with me, Matthias. It is time we talked together." A curious thrush perching in a gnarled pear tree watched the two figures make their way at a sedate pace in the direction of Great Hall, one clad in the dark greeny brown of the order, the other garbed in the lighter green of a novice. They conversed earnestly in low tones. Thinking what a clever bird he was, the thrush swooped down on the basket that had been left behind. Twisters! The basket contained only hard nuts, locked tight within their shells. Feigning lack of interest, lest any other birds had been witness to see his silly mistake, he had been whistling jauntily a few bars of his melodious summer song, strolling nonchalantly over to the cloister walls in search of snails. It was cool inside Great Hall. Sunlight flooded down in slanting rainbow-hued shafts from the high, narrow stained-glass windows. A million-colored dust motes danced and swirled as the two mice trod the ancient stone floor. The Father Abbot halted in front of the wall on which hung a long tapestry. This was the pride and joy of Redwall. The oldest part had been woven by the founders of the abbey, but each successive generation had added to it. Thus the tapestry was not only a priceless treasure, it was also a magnificent chronicle of early Redwall history. The abbot studied the wonderment in Matthias's eyes as he asked him a question, the answer to which the wise mouth already knew. "What are you looking at, my son?" Matthias pointed to a figure woven into the tapestry. It was a heroic-looking mouse with a fearless smile on his handsome face. Clad in armor, he leaned casually on an impressive sword, while behind him foxes, wildcats, and vermin fled in terror. The young mouse gazed in admiration. "Oh, Father Abbot," he sighed, "if only I could be like Martin the warrior. He was the bravest, most courageous mouse that ever lived." The abbot sat down slowly on the cold stone floor, resting his back against the wall. "Listen to what I say, Matthias. You have been like a son to me, ever since you first came to our gate as an orphaned woodland mouse, begging to be taken in. Come, sit by me, and I will try to explain to you what our order is all about. We are mice of peace. Oh, I know that Martin was a warrior mouse, but those were wild days when strength was needed, the strength of a champion, such as Martin. He arrived here in the deep winter when the founders were under attack from many foxes, vermin, and a great wild cat. So fierce a fighter was Martin that he faced the enemy single-pawed, driving them mercilessly, far from Mossflower. During the rout, Martin fought a great battle against overwhelming odds. He emerged victorious after slaying the wild cat with his ancient sword, which became famous throughout the land. But in the last bloody combat, Martin was seriously wounded. He lay injured in the snow until the mice found him. They brought him back to the abbey and cared for his hurts until he regained his strength. Then something seemed to come over him. He was transformed by what could only be called a mouse miracle. Martin foresaw the way of the warrior and hung up his sword. That was when our order found its true vocation. All mice took a solemn vow never to harm another living creature unless it was an enemy that sought to harm our order by violence. They vowed to heal the sick, care for the injured, and gave aid to the wretched and impoverished. So it was written, and so it had been through all the ages of mousekind since. Today, we are deeply honored and highly respected society. Anywhere we go, even far beyond Mossflower, we are treated with courtesy by all creatures. Even predators will not harm a mouse who wears the habit of our order. They know he or she is one who will heal and give aid. It is an unwritten law that Redwall mice can go anywhere, through any territory, and pass unharmed. At all times we must live up to this. It is our way, our very life. As the abbot spoke, so his voice increased in volume and solemnity. Matthias sat under his stern gaze, completely humbled. Abbot Mortimer stood and winked and put a wrinkled paw all lightly on the small head, right between the velvety ears. now drooping with shame. Once more the abbot's heart softened towards the little mouse. Poor Matthias, alas for your ambitions. The day of the warrior is gone, my son. We live in peaceful times. Thank heaven, and you need only think of obeying me, your abbot, and doing as you are bidden. In time to come, when I am long gone to my rest, you will think back to this day and bless my memory, for then you will be a true member of Redwall. Come now, my young friend, cheer up. It is the summer of the late rose. There are many, many days of warm sun ahead of us. Go back and get your basket of hazelnuts. Tonight we have a great feast to celebrate, my Golden Jubilee as Abbot. When you have taken the nuts to the kitchen, I have a special task for you. Yes, indeed, I'll need some fine fish for the table. Get your rod and line. Tell Brother Alf that he is to take you fishing in the small boat. That's what young mice like doing, isn't it? Who knows? You may find a fine trout or some sticklebacks. Run along now, young one. Happiness filled Matthias from tail to whiskers as he bobbed a quick bow to his superior and shuffled off. Smiling benignly, the abbot watched him go. Little rascal, he must have a word with the almoner to see if some sandals could be found that were the right fit for Matthias. Small wonder the poor mouse kept tripping up. Chapter 2. The high warm sun shone down on Cluny the Scourge. Cluny was coming. He was big and tough, an evil rat with ragged fur and curved, jagged teeth. He wore a black eye patch. His eye had been torn out in a battle with a pike. Cluny had lost an eye. The pike had lost its life. Some said that Cluny was a Portuguese rat. Others said that he came from the jungles far across the wide oceans. Nobody knew for sure. Cluny was a bilge rat, the biggest, most savage rodent that ever jumped from ship to shore. He was black, with gray and pink scars all over his huge, sleek body, from the tip of his wet nose up past his green and yellow slitted eye, across both his mean, tattered ears, down the length of his heavy vermin-ridden back to the enormous whip-like tail which had earned him his title, Cluny the Scourge. Now he rode on the back of the hay wagon with his 500 followers, a mighty army of rats, sewer rats, tavern rats, water rats, dockside rats, Cluny's army, fearing, yet following him. Redtooth, his second in command, carried a long pole. This was Cluny's personal standard. The skull of a ferret was fixed at its top. Cluny had killed the ferret. He feared no living thing. And here's a picture of Cluny the Scourge. Wild-eyed, with the terror of rat smell in his nostrils, the horse plunged ahead without any driver. Where the hay cart was taking him was a little concern to Cluny. Straight on the panicked horse galloped, past the milestone lodged in the earth at the roadside, heedless of the letters graven in the stone. Redwall Abbey, 15 miles. Cluny spat over the edge of the cart at two young rabbits playing in a field. Tasty little things. A pity the cart hadn't stopped yet, he thought. The high, warm sun shone down on Cluny the Scourge. Cluny was a god of war. Cluny was coming nearer. Chapter 3. Beneath the great hall of Redwall, candles burned bright in their sconces. This was the cavern hole of the mice. What a night it was going to be! Between them, Matthias and Brother Elf had caught and landed a fully grown grayling. They had fought and played the big fish for nearly 2 hours, finally wading into the shallows and dragging it to the bank. It was nearly 2 pounds in weight, a tribute to Brother Elf's angling skills combined with the youthful muscles of Matthias and their joint enthusiasm. Constance the badger had to be called. Gripping the fish in her strong jaws, she followed the 2 mice to the abbey kitchen and delivered the catch for them. Then she made her farewells. They would see her at the Jubilee feast that evening, along with many other Mossflower residents who had been invited to share the festivities. Brother Elf and Matthias stood proudly beside their catch amid the culinary hustle and bustle until they were noticed by Friar Hugo. Busy as he was, the enormously fat Hugo, who would have had other title but that of friar, stopped what he was doing. Wiping the perspiration from his brow with a dandelion that he held with his tail, he wallowed about inspecting the fish. Nice shiny scales, bright eyes, beautiful, fresh. Friar Hugo smiled so joyfully that his face disappeared amid deep dimples. He shook Elf by the paw and clapped Matthias heartily on the back as he called out between chuckles, "Bring the white gooseberry wine. Fetch me some rosemary, thyme, beech nut, and honey quickly. And now, friends, now," he squeaked, waving the dandelion wildly with his tail, "I, Hugo, will create a grayling a la Redwall, such as would melt in the mouth of mice. Fresh cream. I need lots of fresh cream. Bring some mint leaves, too." They left Friar Hugo ranting on, delirious in his joy, as they both went off to bathe and clean up, combing whiskers, curling tails, shining noses, and the 101 other grooming tasks that Redwall mice always performed in preparation for an epic feast. The rafters of Cavern Hole rang to the excited buzz and laughter of the assembled creatures. Hedgehogs, moles, squirrels, woodland creatures, and mice of all kinds, field mice, hedge mice, dormice, even a family of poor little church mice. Kindly helpers scurried about, making everybody welcome. "Hello there, Mrs. Church Mouse. Sit the children down. I'll get some raspberry cordial. Why, Mr. Blankvold, so nice to see you. How's the back? Better now? Good. Here, try a drop of this peach and elderberry brandy." Matthias's young head was in a whirl. He could not remember being so happy in all his life. Winifred, the otter, nudged him. "I say, Matthias, where is this giant grayling that you and old Alf hooked by the claw? I wish that I could land a beauty like that. Nearly a 2-pounder, wasn't it?" Matthias swelled with pride. Such praise! And from the champion fisher herself. An otter! Tim and Tess, the twin church mouse babes, felt Matthias's strong arm muscles and giggled aloud in admiration. He helped to serve them 2 portions of apple and mint ice cream. Such nice little twins. Was it only 3 months ago that they had helped Sister Stephanie to get them over tail rickets? How they had grown! Abbot Mortimer sat in his carved willow chair, beaming thanks as one by one the new arrivals laid their simple homemade gifts at his feet. And a corn cup from a squirrel, fishbone combs from the otters, mossy bark sandals made by the moles, and many more fine presents too numerous to mention. The abbot shook his head in amazement. Even more guests were arriving. He beckoned Friar Hugo to his side. A whispered conference was held. Matthias could only hear snatches of the conversation. "Don't worry, Father Abbot. There will be enough for all. How are the cellar stocks, Hugo?" "Enough to flood the abbey pond, Father. And nuts? We must not run short of nuts. You name them, we've got them. Even candied chestnuts and acorn crunch. We could feed the district for a year. Dairy produce? Oh, that! I've got a cheddar cheese that 4 badgers couldn't roll, plus 10 other varieties." Good. Thank you, Hugo. Oh, we must thank Alf and young Matthias for their magnificent fish. What fine anglers they are. There's enough to keep the entire abbey going for a week. Excellent mice. Well done. Matthias blushed to his tail's end. The otters! A loud jolly cry went up as 3 otters in clown costumes came bounding in. Such acrobatics! They tumbled, balanced, and gyrated, cavorting comically across the laden tabletops without upsetting as much as a single sultana. They ended up hanging from the rafters by a strand of ivy, to wild applause. Ambrose Spike, the hedgehog, did his party piece. He amazed everyone with his feats of legerdemain. Eggs were taken from the squirrel's ear. A young mouse's tail stood up and danced like a snake. The incredible vanishing shell trick was performed in front of a group of little harvest mice who kept squeaking, "He's got hidden in his prickles." But had he? Ambrose made a few mysterious passes and produced the shell, straight out of the mouth of an awestruck infant mouse. Was it magic? Of course it was. All activity ceased as the great Joseph bell tolled out 8 o'clock from the abbey belfry. Silently, all the creatures filed to their allotted places. They stood reverently behind the seats with heads lowered. Abbot Mortimer rose and solemnly spread his paws wide. encompassing the festive board. He said the grace. Fur and whisker, tooth and claw, all who enter by our door. Nuts and herbs, leaves and fruits, berries, tubers, plants and roots. Silver fish whose life we take, only for a meal to make. This was followed by a loud and grateful Amen. There was a mass clattering of chairs and scraping of forms as everyone was seated. Matthias found himself next to Tim and Tess on one paw, and Cornflower Field Mouse on the other. Cornflower was a quiet young mouse, but undoubtedly very pretty. She had the longest eyelashes Matthias had ever seen, the brightest eyes, the softest fur, the whitest teeth. Matthias fumbled with a piece of celery and self-consciously turned to see if the twins were coping adequately. You never could tell with these babe church mice. Brother Elf remarked that Friar Hugo had excelled himself, as course after course was brought to the table. Tender freshwater shrimp garnished with cream and rose leaves, deviled barley pearls and acorn puree, apple and carrot chews, marinated cabbage stalks steeped in creamed white turnip with nutmeg. A chorus of oohs and ahs greeted the arrival of 6 mice pushing a big trolley. It was the grayling. Wreaths of aromatic steam drifted around cavern hole. The fish had been baked to perfection. Friar Hugo entered, with a slight swagger added to his ungainly waddle. He swept off his chef's cap with his tail and announced in somewhat pompous squeak, Milford Abbot, honored guests from Mossflower area and members of the Abbey. I wish to present my pièce de résistance. Oh, get on with it, Hugo. After some icy staring about to detect the culprit, and several smothered sniggers from around the room, the little fat friar puffed himself up once more and declaimed firmly, Grayling à la Redwall. Polite but eager applause rippled around as Hugo sliced the fish and placed the first steaming portion onto a platter. With suitable dignity he presented it to the abbot, who thanked him graciously. All eyes were on the Father Abbot. He took the dainty fork, loaded precariously with steaming fish. Carefully he transferred it from plate to mouth. Too indelicately, he turned his eyes upwards, then closed them, whiskers at which, jaws working steadily, munching away, his tail curled up holding a napkin, which neatly wiped his mouth. The abbot's eyes reopened. He beamed like the sun on midsummer morn. Quite wonderful! Perfectly exquisite! Friar Hugo, you are truly my champion chef. Please serve our guests your masterwork. Any further speech was drowned by hearty cheers. And I'll stop the video there, ending chapter 3. But I hope you guys have enjoyed this new read-along so far. And I hope to see you in the continuation of Redwall by Brian Jacques, in which we will be continuing with chapter 4. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching, and please take good care of yourselves.